Hello, Starseeds, and welcome to this episode of Astrology Chats, where we're going to talk all about the Starseed Astrological Blueprint with special musical guest, Freddie Mercury, the lead vocalist of the legendary Queen. I have a presentation all prepared that starts with first defining our terms. After all, this is still class, warrior class to be exact. In a world where language is increasingly ever more important, I wanted to be sure, actually crystal clear, when I am saying starseed. What is a starseed, or who is a starseed? If you do a quick search online, you can find some new age definitions as to what a starseed is. And on some levels I get these definitions, and on others I don't subscribe to them. And so for the purposes of this presentation, I'm going to define exactly what I mean by starseed. Carl Sagan has a lovely quote about us earthlings being made of star stuff, that we are a way for the universe to know itself. And so when we alchemize this idea of your birth chart being a map or a blueprint of the cosmos when you were born, well then that combines itself with that definition of creating the astrological starseed blueprint. I have an offering for a very pretty takeaway of your own astrological blueprint, which I will link to in the description and takeaway item notes. For this episode of Astrology Chats, we are going to highlight the late, great Freddie Mercury's birth chart in an example of what an astrological starseed blueprint looks like. And we'll also illustrate the elements of how a starseed's blueprint expresses itself in this earthly plane of existence. And so without further ado, let's get into the presentation. Okay, Starseeds, I am super excited to be sharing this Starseed Astrological Blueprint presentation with you all, featuring Freddie Mercury from Queen. If you would like more information about astrology and other magical topics, you can also check us out on our website, which is listed there in the corner, sacredsomaAlchemy.com. As a way to guide this discussion today, we have three main topics. We have the definition of a starseed, the Starseed Astrological Blueprint itself, and then finally, Freddie Mercury's chart, which will illustrate or provide depth to the previous two topics. And so, as mentioned in the introduction of this presentation, I wanted to define my terms as to what a starseed actually was in terms of my frame or map of reality. The reason for this is because there is a lot of information in this world, this Age of Aquarius world, about starseeds. And a lot of the intel I do like from the perspective of the fact that the Earth is raising in vibration, raising in consciousness, and us as her children are also raising along with her. What I don't necessarily subscribe to is this idea of alien ships or coming through portals from an external area and coming into the earth as like external helpers of some sort. But when it comes to starseed itself, I think myself and Kevin, from a Sacred Soma Alchemy perspective and the intel that we've received from Mushroomland, as well as my higher selves and the dreamscape and all that kind of stuff, is that starseed is much more simple. It's really looking at the aspects of what make up that word, right? Star, seed, and seed being of the earth and requiring the proper nutrients and environment in order to flourish and grow and express the full cosmic possibility that you have. So that's how I see starseed. I hope you like it. The Starseed Astrological Blueprint actually consists of three parts. We have your natal chart, which is what you've all seen before, that chart of all the planets and all the luminaries when you took your first breath into this existence. We next have your elements and your planetary rulers. And now this is where it gets really interesting, because just because your sun sign, let's say you're a Libra, I'm saying this because Kevin's birthday just passed, but you're a Libra, that's your solar sign, that doesn't necessarily mean that that is your planetary ruler. It could be, but you will see in the blueprint why that can or cannot be the case. And then it finally consists of major aspects. And this is where different astrologers may choose to focus on different things when it comes to the interpretation of a chart. And based on the blueprint or the definition of the Starseed Astrological Blueprint in this case, I pick aspects as they relate to your mission or perhaps how you can find purpose within this existence. So that's kind of like the overall view of a Starseed Astrological Blueprint. Okay, this is where I want to show my shirt off. Okay, so this next part of the video, I didn't actually plan to include necessarily as part of the Astrological Blueprint, but I found this super interesting because Queen, the logo itself, as you can see here, I'm probably going to cut to a video clip of me performing with the babes, pour some sugar on me with this shirt. Freddie Mercury himself actually designed this shirt. I'm going to stand up. Yeah. So Freddie Mercury himself actually designed this shirt. It consists of all of the main astrological signs of the members of the band. So Cancer the crab, which you can see right here on top of the Q, is represented by Brian May, who is the guitarist and co-founder of Queen. Leo the lions, you can see them here on either side of the Q. They represent John Deacon, the bassist, and Roger Taylor, the drummer, and they're represented by those two lions. They were both Leos. And finally, Virgo, which is Freddie Mercury's sign. Freddie Mercury is a Virgo and ruled by Mercury. So from the offset, his solar sign was ruled by Mercury, which makes sense. Freddie Mercury himself is a Virgo represented by two fairies as he designed the logo called the Queen's Crest himself. And so Freddie Mercury, due to his background, we're going to get into his birth chart in just a moment, came from a family that was very astrologically knowledgeable. So Freddie Mercury, when he created this logo, knew exactly what he was doing. So he had all of the members of his band represented astrologically on this logo, on this magical emblem, this shield, this crest, with a phoenix looking over everyone with the wings. So it's such a powerful logo, and it made me so happy to know that I didn't even know that I was expressing that on stage with Pour Some Sugar on Me. That's the beauty of synergy and synchronicity and alchemy and how that comes together. So this has been a true blessing to kind of discover the fact that there was already an astrological knowing that Freddie Mercury had when Queen was coming together. Speaking of Freddie Mercury, let's get into his chart. So he was born in Zanzibar, Urban West in Tanzania on September 5th, 1946. He was born Faruka Bulsara. Brian May actually attributes Freddie's choice of surname. So his Freddie Mercury choice of name was to a line about Mother Mercury in his song, My Fairy King. The lyrics to that song are pretty eerie. I may include that as a little bit of an appendix in the follow-up notes because it's actually kind of fitting to what we're going through right now. It's a little bit of foretelling. And My Fairy King was a song that Freddie Mercury wrote himself. Kevin was saying, he's like, why do you want the snowball or the mic in front of your face? But I'm like, that makes me look professional. It makes me look like this is an actual show or podcast. But anyways, this is Freddie Mercury's birth chart. As you can see here, he does have a lot of activity going on one side of the chart. There is a whole host of meanings behind what shape or image your birth chart expresses, which came to my knowledge as a result of looking at Freddie Mercury's chart. So Thank you, Freddie, for that. I'm not going to get into that detail in this presentation. That's going to be a future Astro Chat presentation. But I will get into the fact that he does have a lot expressed here in Libra and a lot of cuspy action, as we'll get into the later slides when we talk about what his major star signals are. So if you look here, of course, his sun is in Virgo. His Mercury is also in Virgo with the winged cap. So you have a conjunction. So you have two planets that are located in the same sign. And ironically enough, they both deal with Mercury. So Mercury, the planet Mercury, is exalted in his chart, meaning that it's in a favorable position in its chart. Other things to kind of note in this particular chart is where his moon positioning is, where you can see here it's a cusp between Sagittarius and Capricorn. The reason why this is relevant is because if you look up Freddie Mercury's chart, some charts will have him as being Sagittarius and some will have him as being Capricorn, because we don't necessarily know his exact birth time. As mentioned before, Brian May said it's because his rising or ascendant sign was ruled by Mercury, but that would make his birth time, I think, 5:40 a.m., which still would make him kind of cuspy when it comes to the moon, which I'll get into what that means interpretation-wise, because the moon rules emotion, and if you're having a moon sign that's between signs, especially signs such as Sagittarius and Capricorn, which deal with larger societal constructs such as religion and rules, and your emotions are involved in that can bring a lot of challenge and stuff you have to deal with. So that's something to kind of look at when I look at his chart at first glance. Let's see here. Also the North Node, because I did that presentation about Rahu and Ketu, the North Node and the South Node. Your North Node is all about your purpose in this existence, and that, as you can see, is located in Gemini, which is another mercurial sign. As mentioned before, and in many of my other previous astrology chats, there are a ton of things to look at when you're looking at an astrological birth chart. It can be very overwhelming. Even those who have already gotten a chart reading from me before, when you get the takeaway, it's a little bit like, whoa, like, what is all this? And is it all important? Yes, it's all important, depending, right? So, and it's a good way to kind of look at everything you choose to pay attention to in your lifetime, because everything could be important. It just depends on what you're trying to do, right? Okay, so let's go into the main star signals as it comes to Freddie Mercury. First of all, the ascendant, as mentioned before, we're not quite sure when exactly his birth time was, but if we were to predict, he would be a Leo rising with both Uranus and Saturn in the same sign. So these folks need to use their creativity, which we can see. They need to use their creativity, their authority, and their power. They're looking for love, admiration, and applause. His sun sign, Freddie Mercury's sun sign, is located in Virgo, which is ruled by both Mercury and Chiron. These folks are practical people with great design and manual skills. They're always able to fully concentrate on their tasks. Freddie's moon sign, his emotional world, is found on the cusp of Sagittarius and Capricorn. This causes a blend of personality traits of both of these signs in Freddie's chart. Full of optimism in the company of others, when alone, Freddie may feel a sense of emptiness or loneliness. The North Node, which is the final star signal that I like to look at in the Astrological Starseed Blueprint, the North Node is also known as Rahu, or the head of the dragon. The North Node is a point in the sky that is aligned to your personal celestial axis. Freddie's North Node is in Gemini. The North Node in Gemini personality moves super fast, very fast, and is not well suited to slow moving or delicate activities necessarily. So it needs to go blazing fast. And so I think on some level, Freddie knew that he didn't have a lot of time to do everything that he needed to do in this lifetime. Freddies Chart is a way for us to see the Starseed Blueprint card exemplified. So thank you, Freddie, for that. We have elements, modalities, and planetary rulers at the top of the card, where you can see the breakdown of all of these different things in the chart. This would be specific to you. By no means is Freddie's chart going to be any way representative of what you're going to have in your chart. However, there may be similarities or things that you may relate to in this particular blueprint. So let's get into it. Firstly, elements, the element breakdown. Freddie has 10 planets in fire and 10 planets in air, meaning that he has equal spread between the two. However, he is fire dominant. The reason why he's fire dominant, and this is what Kevin had asked me, is because of the weight of the planets in each of those elements. So for example, something like an ascendant, a sun, a moon sign being in a fire element is going to carry more weight than if it's in, let's say, a lesser, more impactful area. He also has 7 planets in earth, and he actually has 0 in water. And there's actually something to be said of that. I actually can relate. I have no planets in water either. And what this means is that you do spend this lifetime searching or seeking for deeper meaning, because water does represent, illumination, deeper meaning, the waters underneath, which is why Pisces is so much considered a psychic sign. Going off on a tangent, I'm going to bring it back. Next, we have modalities, and we have 4 cardinal, 3 fixed, and 4 mutable for Freddie. And he's a cardinal dominant, definitely a cardinal dominant. Libra's a cardinal sign as well. So very much generation, that spark pushing forward, definitely Freddie Mercury. And planetary rulers, my most fun. I love this part because I did that whole presentation with Sailor Moon as our guest stars. I will link that actually in the description just so you can link to it, because you can go into the significance of Freddie actually being ruled by Venus. So planetary rulers, Venus 16, Mercury 14, Moon 12. So he is primarily ruled by Venus, then Mercury, then the Moon. Love, communication, and emotion. He's ruled by Venus, and I do have something here called the signature sign. I did a post previously about how I'm actually a Leo signature. It's because if you take all of these elements, modalities, and rulers, and you put this together, you'll find a signature sign. So for example, I am a Leo signature, meaning that I have primarily fire and fixed. Now, when you have equal spreads of things, or let's say in Freddie's chart, it's a little bit more clear in the offset that you're primarily ruled by Venus and you're very much a Libra, Virgo type of person, the signature sign may not add anything extra to it. So in this case, Freddie's ambiguous. There's 4 air signs, 4 cardinal signs, 4 mutable, and so there's kind of like an equal spread between like being fiery and air, but he is very much lacking in that water sign. And so like that deep emotional aspect, it's almost like Freddie related to everybody around the world with his music by doing that. That's how I just came up with that now. I think that's what he was seeking out, to connect with all of us through those emotional waters on a grand scale. Go big or go home, right? Okay, now that we know Freddie's main star signals and his main aspects, or rather his main planetary rulers and elements and modalities, we can now go into his aspects. So these are his major aspects, which if you can see here by like the majorly, I don't know what you want to call this, outlined, dark outline box, those indicate an aspect that is very strong in degree. So let me just go back to this chart. If you see a very bold line here, it just means that that angle is expressed strongly. I do now have a little bit of a chart an actual practical chart that I will be using in Astrology Chats to illustrate the aspects, to show it off a little bit more. So stay tuned for that. So these are Freddie Mercury's major aspects as represented by the chart. I'm going to, on the next slide, go into the 3 aspects that we're going to look at as a highlight to better illustrate the previous slide with all of those major aspects. I've highlighted or pulled out 3 aspects that we're going to look at as an educational tool to see how these specific aspects are expressed as a starseed in this existence on this earth, right? So first of all, we've got Mercury conjunct the Sun. This conjunction grants the classic powers of the psychopomp, or the guide of souls to the lower worlds. If you have this aspect in your natal chart, you would have unusual abilities to see into the hidden areas of the human psyche, perhaps easily communicating with animals and nature and exploring non-ordinary states of consciousness. Next, we have Neptune square the moon. The way that your mother nurtured you is more important than with most other people. So with Freddie, his mother, super important. This is because you are sensitive to subtle energies, nonverbal cues, and even other people's thoughts via telepathy or psychic abilities. So all this is saying that Freddie's got this line into the human psyche or subconscious, which explains how he's able to put together such epic music. And finally, what we're going to look at is the part of fortune trine Mercury. Part of fortune is something that is a whole, I would say, like point that is calculated based on other aspects in your chart. I can do a whole presentation just on that, and I think I will. But Freddie Mercury's part of fortune is trine Mercury. And this aspect gives the qualities necessary to be a president or king. You make a very strong impression on others without even trying. People want to be associated with you. So this trine, especially with Mercury, speaks to Freddie fully expressing his potential in this lifetime. And we are extremely grateful and thankful, Freddie, for the music that you've given us. So that concludes the presentation going into Freddie Mercury's birth chart and the Starseed Astrological Blueprint, as well as some major aspects in Freddie Mercury's chart. If you would like to have more magic or get more information into the magic, you can always contact us via email at hello@therachelzproject.com, specific to any of the shows. Or if you would like to book an astrological reading or get your own astrological starseed blueprint, you can contact us at our website on sacredsomaalchemy.com. I will link in the description the direct link to the offering itself, so you know exactly what you're getting. If you have any questions, of course, you can always email us as well. Okay, Starseeds, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Astrology Chats, where we talked all about the Starseed Astrological Blueprint, where we defined our terms as to what a starseed actually is, and went into detail into the late, great Freddie Mercury's chart from Queen. I hope that you found this presentation informative and magical, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Until next time, Starseeds, goodbye.